Hey everybody, this is take two for me. I did this recording just a little bit ago and got the video, didn't get the audio. Um, and I'm moving around here a little bit because I'm going into the red with my volume and I know that distorts. So please pardon me. And again, I appreciate your patience as I work with technology and um, learn to do this stuff online. Um, I wanted to talk to everybody, and I wanted to do this in the form of a video because I think it would work a lot better than me trying to explain what I want to go over in text with me typing it up. And I wanted to talk about the first document assignment. And again, I want to apologize because I have not graded those yet, but I've looked over them and I realized I didn't set the stage properly for that assignment. First of all, my philosophy about history, at least teaching history, is that history is a lot more than just throwing in a bunch of facts and names and dates. To me, one of the most critical aspects of history is learning to think. It's a thinking exercise, learning to think critically, learning to think like a historian. And I recognize and realize that that most of you are not on the road to majoring in history, if anybody is at all. And if somebody goes that route, I think that would be awesome. That would excite me. But my goal is not to make you guys become historians. But having said that, I think that there's a real value in developing the skills that historians use in doing the work that they do. Because in doing the work, historians use sources. They use primary and secondary sources, and hopefully I have a chance to do something a little more structured on this. I'm kind of ad-libbing this, extemporizing, talking off the top of my head, so I apologize for that because best practice says I should be have typed this out and scripted it ahead of time, and therefore I would have a script available for you to read if you wanted to read through my comments. But I'm kind of doing this as with the time that I have, and so just extemporizing. So bear with me as if I kind of ramble and diverge a little bit. Try to avoid that. But like I said, historians, when they do the work, the way they're able to reconstruct what happened in the past is by looking at sources, both what we refer to as primary and secondary sources. And again, if time permits in the course, I'd at some point like to do some more with this, and should have done this before I threw this exercise at you. And so there's a lot of questions historians have to ask, and primary sources are those sources that are first-hand sources from the time period that an event occurred, or that are created by somebody that was involved in the event as it occurred. Secondary sources are things that are put together from those primary sources, like books that we would read, biographies of historical characters, history textbooks, or the form of a secondary source. And there's a wide variety of primary sources as well. But in looking at both types of sources, historians ask themselves a lot of critical questions, and I think that's a valuable skill for us in the world. I think it's valuable. It's always been valuable, but I think particularly in the world we live in today. The sources I use for this assignment come from the Stanford History Education Group. That organization was founded, and it is one of the directors of the program is Sam Weinberg, who's got a background in psychology, but also a background in history, and done a lot of work in this field. But I heard an interview with Sam Weinberg last December, and in that interview, the subject of the interview was the concept of fake news, which we know has become pretty prevalent, or false news, I guess fake news, very prevalent in the world we live, unfortunately. And Weinberg pointed out in the interview, and I fully agree with him, that we live in this era of technology when we have access to more information than we have ever had before. But the problem is we live in an era when we have access to more misinformation than we've ever had access to before. So it is critically important that we understand how to evaluate information and think about it and assess its reliability, dependability, and also to be able to pick apart what people are saying and maybe what the hidden messages might be behind information. And so I think this is a really important skill for everybody to have. I think it's a real world skill that we use every day. But I think it's also a task which, to do effectively, you have to be very conscious about it and think about some things. So one of the things historians ask when they look at resources, two key things they look at. One of the things they look at is the origin of the document, meaning first of all, when the document was created, when it was created in relation to the event that they're examining, especially if it's a primary source document or somebody promoting or presenting it as a primary source. And that's going to be an issue with documents that we looked at, a couple of documents we looked at here. I'll come back to that. So when it was presented, when the document was created, and then who created it? Who was that person? Was that a person that had reason to have particular insight to the event, to be knowledgeable about what actually went on? Somebody that was present firsthand, and do they have reason to be giving a dependable interpretation of the event? One of the gold standards in history of sources is a statement given under oath, because if a person's under oath, there's a lot riding on that. And if they don't tell the truth, there are serious consequences for them doing that. So if you give a statement under oath, that's going to be considered very dependable interpretation. Other statements are given with the intention of trying to sway people in one direction or another, which is the case with one of the documents we looked at. So you want to think about who created that document and what was their purpose in creating the document. Were they trying to sway people? Were they trying to inform people and educate them? Were they providing a statement to some kind of a committee? Were they as I said, trying to sway people? Were they trying to promote a product or promote a certain perspective on an issue or an agenda? So those are the types of things we look at. And again, hopefully, if we have time, I'll come back and maybe we'll do another exercise like this, and I will maybe in a more structured fashion than I am now, and maybe hopefully more coherent, provide you with a little more background about this. But I want to look at documents because there is a question on the test. It's a multiple choice question, which really isn't ideal, but there's a multiple choice question where you're going to use one of these documents. So I wanted to address them. And the first document that you look at, I'm going to slide and over my other computer here so I can kind of look at some stuff while I'm doing this. And again, you have to forgive my lack of tech skills. If I was really tech savvy, I could probably get a screenshot of what I'm talking about while I'm talking. So the first document is the Virginia Company, and it is the description of the settlement in Virginia. And you get the statement, and then you also have some background information about the document. You get the statement, and then after it, they give you some additional facts. And the question is, which of those additional facts might cause you to question the reliability, the accuracy of what the document provides? And the fact that should do that for you is the fact that this statement was given at a time when they were having trouble attracting settlers to the colony. And so therefore, you could think that part of the purpose here is to try to create a positive image of what's going on in the settlement so that people would come. So that is part of what is going on here, and that's something that a historian would pick up on pretty quickly and consider a pretty critical piece of evidence. And pardon me, thank you. I'm trying to get a pop-up down off my other computer. But again, so the purpose of a document, and all of what we're doing here is exercising a skill called sourcing. Again, like I said, asking those questions about the source itself. So that was the problem with the first document. The second document is, yeah, I got to pop up here. Please pardon me. Signing of the Mayflower Compact. And the engraving was created by T.H. Matheson in 1859. That date is significant because the Mayflower Compact was signed in 1620. So Matheson was not there. He's not recording something that he actually saw. And I think most people that would look at this engraving would assume, without having that information, this is something from somebody firsthand, but it's not. And typically, with events like this, if it's recorded in the past in the form of a piece of artwork, usually it's recorded in a way to kind of glorify that event, which is pretty much what Matheson has done here. So historians would question the usefulness of this source and providing a useful perspective or useful information about what happened at the Mayflower Compact. He is probably basing this somewhat on sources he's looked at, but it would appear that he has an intent here of glorifying the event, especially given that it's done this many years after the fact. Now, it could be useful as a historical source in that it could show the perspective of how people in 1859 viewed the signing of the Mayflower Compact, which would be that they viewed it with kind of this glorification and sense of greatness. So it's useful in that sense, but in understanding the signing itself, it's pretty limited because it wasn't there. Now, if this had been from somebody who had actually been at the event, then it would be much more useful to us and insightful. And the next document, a document you've probably seen before, the first Thanksgiving. Painting was done by J.L.G. Ferris, and it was published in 1932. First Thanksgiving, as they tell you in the document, the first Thanksgiving is in 1621. So we were looking at 300 plus years that have passed. Ferris wasn't there. Again, when you have a piece of artwork created about an event this long after the event, a lot of times it is to present that event in a specific light, and in this case, to glorify it. The picture appeared quite frequently until probably the past 20 years or so in textbooks. So that's why a lot of you may have seen it, because it portrays the image that we typically have of what the first Thanksgiving is, not necessarily what it actually was. And so therefore it's a bit misleading. Again, it would be useful if you wanted to look at how people in the 1930s viewed the first Thanksgiving, especially if you were using it to illustrate that people in the 1930s viewed the first Thanksgiving kind of in a glorified manner. And I'm not knocking Thanksgiving by any means. It's a great holiday, but the image that we have traditionally been given of that is not entirely accurate. And this would reflect that. And so it would be reliable, valuable in that respect. But it's not a valuable source in reflecting the first Thanksgiving itself. One question a historian or a historical thinker might ask themselves in thinking about this is, okay, well, if this isn't a good source, what sources would be good at looking at this? So if I had a drawing that was completed by somebody that was there, that would be a good source. If I had a written account from somebody that was there, that would be a good source. If I had an interview with somebody that was at the first Thanksgiving, that would be a good source, or a journal or a diary. In addition, two groups involved in the first Thanksgiving. You have the Pilgrims and the Native Americans. So I want to try to get perspectives from both sides. Historians know that as many sources as they can get is valuable. This source is limited because, as I said, it isn't from that time period that the event occurred. So when you look at these documents, make sure that you pay attention to the background information, who created it, when it was created, who that person, what their goal was. In grading this assignment, since I didn't do a good job of setting it up, my approach is going to be hopefully pretty generous. I think what I'm going to do is, if you did it, you're just simply going to get 5 points right off the top. And then the other 5 of the 10 points will be based on your interpretations. Hopefully, time will allow me to do a second exercise like this where I can do a video like this, except more scripted and hopefully more coherent, where I can talk through a little bit more of this thinking process, how to interpret these things. I really think this is a great way to teach history through the use of documents and sources like this. I do it a lot in my classroom. One of the tricks here is figuring out how, because I can have some great classroom conversations about these documents and ask these questions. A little trickier to figure out how to do that online, but I've got some ideas. Hopefully I'll have some time to kind of put that together so that we can develop those skills. Because again, when you read the class, it's not so much knowing certain facts that I am concerned with as it is your ability to think critically and to view history from a critical lens. Because there are, what you learn the more you study history is there's multiple interpretations of what history is, and you have to go about thinking about how to develop your own perspective and what that means. Hopefully this has been a useful video to you. Evaluation 1 is due Wednesday night at midnight. Take some time, I would say, to make sure you kind of read over both your text information and the information in the modules. And before you jump into that, like I said, maybe I'll work on developing this type of activity a little more, hopefully with this course if time permits me. So just wanted to mention that I will be working on trying to get this stuff graded as quickly as I can in the next few days. So then once you guys get your exams finished, I can jump in and get those graded. If you have questions, if you have concerns, please don't hesitate to email me and let me know. I'll try to get back with you as quick as I can. Again, I apologize. I really didn't set you up correctly for this. I didn't like the material that was provided by Launchpad. I use this stuff a lot. I just am more used to having face-to-face contact where we do some things to kind of get ready for this. And I'll work on that. I think everybody did great on your test. I really enjoyed working with the class. I miss not being able to see people face-to-face, but I like the discussion boards. I've seen a lot of good stuff. I've seen a lot of good work from you guys, and so I just encourage you to keep that up. Stick in there with me. This is going to fly by really fast. And again, I hope this has been useful to you. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to contact. I'll probably put up a text announcement tomorrow about just some other things I wanted to touch base on and reminders of in regards to some other things. But I wanted to do this visually because I just felt like it'd be more effective than me trying to type up something for you. Hope everybody has a good evening. Good luck on the test. Have a good week, and I'll be talking to you probably in the form of a text announcement soon, and maybe doing some more video announcements. Thanks a lot. Everybody have a good evening. I'll talk with everybody later.